Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening from wherever you are, since we are all from all over the world. Thank you guys for coming. I'm Lina Jaber, and I'm presenting from Amman. My forward today is focused on the Moroccan community in Palestine and in Jerusalem. And my research was mainly based on an article by Noura al-Tijani. It was on the Palestinian family network. It's basically a cultural website for Palestinians, and to find, if you want to know anything about Palestine, it's over there. And there was also some of my research from the Institute for Palestinian Studies. I found a lot of resources that were a lot of information that was like scattered, but they all echoed the story I'm about to present today. So I just want to start with the story that inspired me to look into this matter. Just some context, I'm half Moroccan, half Jordanian, Palestinian. And my father was one day walking in home from work, and there was a familiar aroma in the house that took him back to his childhood. So he asked my mother, like, why does the house smell of chisha? That's what he asked her. And she asked him if he knew the Moroccan dish. And he denied and said that's what he used to eat as a child back in Hebron, in Khalil. And this dish is mainly prepared from barley, from ground barley, and it's cooked sometimes with milk and cinnamon as something that's sweet, or as savory as in Morocco. And yeah, this story basically sparked my interest when my dad told it to me, and I wanted to research and why there are similarities between very different countries that are so far off. So I'm basically here to talk about what the Moroccan community was doing there and how they contributed to Palestine and Jerusalem. So in 1187 AD, the Moroccan Quarter was given as a waqf by Sultan Salah ad-Din after expelling the Crusades. This was named as Harat al-Maghaib, and it occupied the part of the old city where the Al-Aqsa Mosque is, the Dome of the Rock, the Jewish Quarter, Bab al-Silsile, and the Islamic Religious Court were located. Several religious and scientific institutes were set up in that quarter, and they contributed very much to the social, scientific, and cultural development in Jerusalem. Here we can see the Moor's Gate, or Bab al-Magharbe. It's one of the 4 entrances to the Dome of Rock and the Temple Mount of Jerusalem. So when Salah ad-Din was asked by his entourage about the reason he for the residents of the Moroccans in this area, especially that the western wall of Al-Aqsa Mosque, it was an easy and plain area for the Crusades to return back into and invade Jerusalem again, given that the other sides were rugged. He replied by saying, I have placed those who are steadfast on land and thriving in the sea, whom I have entrusted with this great mosque and this city. So a little context regarding that is that the Moroccan coast is about 2,500 kilometers in length, and it extends from the Algerian border along the Mediterranean Sea and down southwest along the Atlantic Ocean. So the Moroccan community, the Moroccan people were actually really well in fighting on land and in sea. Here I have some of the names of the most well-known Palestinian families with Moroccan roots, such as al-Maghribi, al-Alami, al-Tijani. We have a lot of Tijani here in Jordan, for example, al-Filyali, Boumel Hamla, al-Tazi, al-Qutab, for example. The advent of the Moroccans to Jerusalem was added a taste to the diversity in the Palestinian society back then. And in addition to their heroic defenses in Jerusalem, the Moroccans built a strong relationship with the different groups within the Palestinian community. So there was an article by Abdurrahman al-Maghribi. He said that the Moroccans were distinguished by their honor and by the respect to other people, and how they treated non-Muslims, especially Jews who dwelt in Jerusalem, with respect, and they showed compassion to them. Unfortunately, by the end of the 1967 war, the Moroccan Quarter was razed to the ground to make way for al-Buraq wall, as you guys can see. After the time of the demolition, half of the neighborhood's residents went back to Morocco and or the Moroccan countries, and some of them remained in Palestine and the neighboring countries. Here's a small map that shows where they all moved away from Palestine, or they stayed there. These families there were scattered, and because of the forced evacuation from the Zionist aggression, and where the houses once stood, you can only see a public square, like an open public square where the Wailing Wall is. And here's a very unfortunate photo of the quarter, and after the demolition, like you can see how a lot of history went by. One of the main contribution of the Moroccans was al-Afdali school, which is known as al-Qubba. They had a school there, and now it was till the demolition, it was used as a shrine for some really known sheikh back then. And given that I'm half Moroccan, it was very interesting for me to see the similarities between the couscous and al-Maghribiya. So when you see in the Moroccan cuisine the couscous, you can also find al-Maftoul, al-Maghribiya, or like in my dad, how he calls it couscousoun. And it's named after the Moors. So you can see similarities between the couscous, the use of vegetables, onions, carrots, chickpeas, like a sauce of vegetable sauce. And it was also known that the Moroccans used to wear this jalabiya in the country, you know, in the harat, yeah. But because they lived hundreds of years among the Palestinians, it's no longer popular within the Moroccans, and the tradition of the clothes was broken. The Moroccans of Palestine have become an integral part and inseparable part of the cultural weave of Palestine, because it was easy for them to have intermarriage, and you can hardly detect any differences between them, the Palestinians and the Moroccans. It was easy for them to melt in because of the common religion and language, especially the duration of the stay. So that facilitated the adaptation of the Moroccans in Palestine. If you'd like to know more about it, I've posted some of the resources I used. You can find more in the Palestinian Studies Institute of Palestinian Studies, and there's a memoir by a Jerusalemite who actually tells the story of him seeing the Moroccan Quarter demolished, unfortunately. Thank you for listening to my presentation. I hope you guys enjoyed it.